Sure. So, like I told you before you hit the record button, I was just on the phone with an insurance adjuster. So that's what I do. I mean, that's real estate has its fun parts. It's got its non-glamorous parts as well. So, for probably 15 years or so, was in the mostly the apartment development business. Probably the last year or so, more in the apartment acquisition business. Prior to that, I built a medical center. I founded a hospital. I owned a bunch of little things, stuff like that. So it all kind of started back when I was a resident, and I just slowly built up. And so now I'm kind of just focusing on one asset class, and trying to kind of sift through the weeds and find that one flower every once in a while. It's tough these days, but if you find one, it's worth it.
Yeah, because I was actually doing some introspection the other day, and I was, real estate is where a lot of physicians put their wealth into and, get their financial freedom. And, these days there's, again, there's climate change, there's hurricanes in Houston, heat waves in Texas, there's insurance, there's even tenants have more power than than the owners, and you've got all these rising costs. So talk about one thing I want to talk about is what is so attractive as real estate as an asset class, and where is it going? Because you've got interest rates. Are there other places where doctors should be considering putting their money? Why is it still considered the best asset class?
So I don't know if it's the best. It's been the best for me. Going way back, the reason I got into real estate was because, it was easy for me to understand. I was a resident. I was an orthopedic resident, and so it was just math. Like I tell people, you buy something for one price, you rent it to somebody for a little bit more, and you keep the extra. So I understood real estate. It didn't move fast. I didn't have to sit in front of a computer and day trade stuff. I could do it part-time or full-time. I could do it with partners or without partners. So that's why I enjoyed real estate. In and of itself, the benefits is we all know, there's sort of the four pillars of real estate, right? And the number one hot button for me was cash flow. So I wanted cash coming in that I didn't necessarily have to see patients or do a surgery or work for that, because the doctors that were training me, I didn't want their lives way back in residency. That's what kind of triggered me. And so I just wanted income coming in from somewhere else. It didn't require one-to-one effort. So real estate provided that. Later, I learned, it took time to learn this stuff. I've been on this road a long time, so I'm a slow learner. But, the tax benefits were huge. Over time, I realized I was paying a blended lower tax rate than I would have if I was just a surgeon. The appreciation in value, that's pillar number three. Most of the time, real estate goes up in value if you look over a long period of time. That's not necessarily happening right now, but this is just one of those times when you need to kind of step back and realize that not all things go up. And then the amortization part, when you find out that if you buy something and rent it to somebody else and cash flow it, and you have a loan on it, number one, it's using other people's money, using the bank's money. You get 100% of the benefits, so you get all the depreciation and tax benefits. But you also get the benefit of your tenant paying your loan down, and they're happy to do that. You give them a nice home to live in, whether it's an apartment or a single family home or whatever it is, or an office building or something. They're happy to use that and pay a fair market price for it. And in doing so, they pay down your loan. So there's kind of the four benefits of real estate. It doesn't make it the best, but it works a lot for us as doctors because, we're busy. We're busy and we're good at what we do, and we make discretionary income most of the time. I know things continue to change, but it's a way to take that extra income and have it grow upon itself. So it's understandable. It doesn't move super fast. You either do it yourself or get in with the right bunch of people, and you can over time use compounding to grow a significant amount of money and really lighten your load, whether that's retiring from your job or just smiling a little more because you don't have as many bills. That's why I like real estate. That's why I like passive investing in general. And there are a lot of other asset classes besides real estate.
Because we'll talk about the other asset classes and how doctors should be positioning themselves in this really volatile environment. One thing that you touched upon is the time aspect, because a lot of doctors, they make a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of time. And so and I've known doctors that buy single families and then they acquire these properties and they become landlords. And that's actually taking more time where they could be, doing surgeries or seeing patients. So how do you eliminate this? You want you want all the benefits, but you don't want the hassle of the actual property. Just how can doctors position themselves to take advantage of upside, minimize the downside?
I don't want to fix toilets and collect rent. Short answer, get a manager. Just get a manager. There are managers for everything. You may pay more for a single family home property manager, but they're out there. And so then it becomes pretty passive. I could tell you, I started with small properties, because I didn't know anything. I was learning, right? So I got these small properties, but I bought a lot of them. And I've got managers. So virtually every one that I own, I haven't seen since the day I walked in to inspect it to buy it. And some of those are close to 30 years now. So it can be really passive. So that's one thing. Management's key. I usually suggest to people to put a management percentage in their pro forma when they're doing the numbers to see if it's going to make sense, right? I've got a little sheet that I give people and it's got management in there. And if it works with management, you're in good shape. If you think you're a better manager than a professional manager, most of the time you're fooling yourself. You might be saving 6 to 10%. But I can promise you, Tom Burns is a horrible manager compared to all the people that I've hired, even the bad ones, because they're going to do background checks. They're going to try to put in good tenants. They're going to take care of the repairs and maintenance and stuff. I basically get a report that says, hey, you bought a new toilet last month. Or, I don't know anything other than cashing the check. So I suggest everybody to really build in management. It's not the end of the world to manage a property or two to see what is involved in managing. Then you'll be a better manager of your managers. So that's not a bad thing. I would do it maybe to learn, but I'd try to keep it passive. And then, so if you're not out there buying single family homes or small condos like I bought, or, small apartment complexes, you can always go into syndications, which are truly passive, and that can be in the real estate world or in other things. So you can keep it pretty passive and keep doing what you do to make that extra money.
Yeah. I mentioned all of those, especially syndications, that kind of really passive. That's kind of just, pulling your funds together and getting the upside of a apartment or commercial, which brings me to my next question is, traditionally it's been residential real estate. And I know with after COVID, commercial real estate's thinking of, we've got work from home. So what sectors should physicians be looking at? Like, I know residential has always been like kind of bread and butter, but I've heard like industrial, I've heard self-storage. What kind of sectors should physicians be looking at in this climate?
Sure. Well, I'd never tell anybody where to look. I'd tell them, figure out what you know best or what you understand, or if your partners and friends and your network is into something, get into something you understand and you like. I will sound a little like a homer, but there's a reason I'm still in multifamily. It was close to 20 years ago. It was about just before the GFC. One partner of mine and I, we kind of thought apartments might have a nice run, and we were pretty on point with that. Still wish we'd have bought more or built more, but so that was a great time. It was a wonderful time from 2011 or so to just a couple of years ago. So now we've got an oversupply, but we've still got lots of demand. We are still nationally underbuilt, as everybody's heard those statistics. I'm sure it's roughly 4 million, 4.3 million, whatever. Depends on where you see the numbers, but we are underbuilt. People can't afford homes. All these dynamics are going to change, but right now, young people can't afford homes. They want something. That they're going to have to find something to rent. So
yeah,
I would never say where should people to go, but where should people go? We believe right now, my firm, we figure if we pick up an apartment complex now and it can break even or make cash flow, that within the next 12 to 24 months, the supply glut's going to come down. The demand is still going to be there, and there's going to be pressure on rents. So we think that now is the time to buy when people are a bit fearful. It's still really, really hard to find one that makes sense. So that's in the apartment world. Built to rent is really hot. The institutions love built to rent, which means they're picking them up. So if you can build a nice community, it'll sell for a nice multiple. And the young people that can't afford to buy a house are maybe paying a little extra premium to go into a built to rent community so they can have a little yard, maybe not have a common wall with somebody else. So that's really becoming a big sector, at least in Texas. I mean, I know it's across the country, but it's really strong in Texas. And a lot of my friends and cohorts are building big build to rent communities. Office, nobody wants to talk about, and I'm not smart enough to, it's great. If you can buy an office building and you have tenants for it, you can get it for dimes on the dollar. You just have to have a good business plan. And I've got a guy in one of the groups that I work in, we meet every month, pretty experienced guy, and he is buying office buildings like crazy because he's got the connections. He used to be a broker. He's been doing this for 20 years, so he can fill his building. So, he's buying a building for 60, 70, 80% discounts. So that's going to be a home run for him because he's got deep enough pockets and he's got the tenants. Last mile industrial's always been good. So, I'm bouncing around, right? I'm bouncing around the room like a ping pong ball because nothing's really better than other. Certainly office is out of favor, but in favor for some that know what they're doing. Multifamily is easy to understand. I still do believe that properly underwritten, properly capitalized acquisitions right now are going to do very well. I also feel that those that are developing now, when they come out of the ground, I think they're going to be in good shape because that supply will have dropped off. The development's cratered. And so it's big, huge amount of development finishing out the end of 24. And then as 25 starts, those developments are going to come down, or the deliveries are going to come down, and there's not going to be enough units for everybody. So hope that long, convoluted answer helped.
It sounds like everything's cyclical, with the business cycle and the economic cycle. And basically, the fundamentals make the numbers work. The margins may not be there, but if you get it at a good price, eventually you'll make your profits. So switching to for physicians themselves and just talking about this climate of healthcare, and there's just an exodus of doctors. They're very unhappy with the system. They work so hard, but just kind of trudging along. How do you? Because I know you saw it in residency. I saw it in medical school. How should doctors be approaching financial freedom? Like, I know a lot of them are saying, "I'm not going to do a residency. I don't want to do this." A lot of them are going into tech, finance, starting their own businesses. How should doctors be approaching financial literacy and freedom?
Sure. And it's a shame. I will just, as to level set, my daughter is just about to start as a W-2 employee for a big institution. And which is, well over half of the docs that are working now from the numbers I see. We all have to decide what we want in life. Gosh, I loved medicine, different time. And I had a little control over eliminating some of the annoying things about medicine. I owned my practice. That's a lot harder to do now. I talked to a guy the other day that does what I did. He owns his own practice. So I really enjoyed it. And it's a shame to see such smart, well-trained people get pushed out of a noble profession that should value their services. So anyway, off the soapbox. I wish they didn't have to think like that, but you got to decide what you want. Do you want to, is it as base as, want to still be called doctor all the time? I had friends that, by golly, if you didn't call them doctor, they'd slap your hand. But, it's our way to give back. So you have to decide what you want. And if your ability to give back is overshadowed by the horrendous bureaucracy of your business, or the fact that you don't get paid for the amount of effort, blood, sweat, and tears and emotion that you put into it, search for something else. I would rather see folks be a doctor. It's kind of why I wrote my book. I was hoping people would get less financially bothered and be able to teach, to practice medicine the way they wanted to. But so that's my hope, that people would create enough passive income that they're less stressed, or even free. If they're free, then they can go do medicine however they want. Or if that's not the case and medicine is just something that is hard for them to get up each day, I'd start looking where they could use their talents elsewhere, or you know, start creating those investments. One thing it's difficult. I saw a study the other day that showed the top ten highest paid professions in the United States. Eight of them were doctors, one was a nurse practitioner, and the other one was airline pilot. So it kind of skews what we know about, how we're really paid and the hours we put in. But if somebody was really hating it, I would tell them to work really hard, work as many hours as possible, and build up some extra income and invest it into hopefully something conservative as a base, and then start growing into the real estate and private equity and whatever fit them. Because it's not a short path. It can be. We see those every once in a while on Facebook and all that stuff, but those are Facebook posts. It takes time. It took me a long time. It took me 10 years, and I wasn't trying to get out of medicine. I just wanted a little extra money to come in. But all of a sudden, 10 years later, it just happened. So I think people now are undoubtedly smarter than me, certainly learn faster, and with things available to them, I think they can do it faster, but we do overestimate what we can do in a year. We underestimate what we can do in 5 years or 10 years, depending on whose quote you listen to. So hang in there, count on compounding, do something every day to bring in some sort of passive income so you can get the freedom to make the choice that you're asking me about.
I love that. And I tell my kids, my nephew, nieces, I'm like, a job isn't going to make you rich, but if you learn how to make money work for you, you can be very wealthy. So, and I love the title of your book. It's talking about why doctors don't get rich. And the thing is, you go around here and it's like people saying, like, you see these posts, I'm a doctor making $800K a year, but then, like, they come 60, 65, they can't retire, they have to keep working. Why is that? What's going on?
Well, that's a lot of money. You got to, we all must realize that's a lot of money the population makes. And what is it? 0.3% of us in the country are doctors. So, but it can be multifactorial. Certainly that 800K gets taxed very heavily. Maybe 500,000 or 600,000 that you make in real estate would be taxed much less. It might leave you an equivalent amount of money, or it might be taxed not at all, depending on how you do your depreciation. So that's one thing. It gets taxed heavily. We're all human. I still ended up buying a big house when I was young. It was pretty inexpensive back then, especially relative to now, but it can be some consuming. It's easy to say, hard to do, but if you could come out of residency making doctor money, but living like a resident or somewhere in between, you'd do wonders for your midterm and long-term future, because you'd have more extra money to use to invest. There's children, there's college savings, that goes up by 1,000,000% a year, and so it's very expensive to save for that. So I don't really have the answer. Believe it or not, I had a partner in one of my doctor offices who made just about that much money and didn't have any retirement fund. So, so it can happen.
Wow.
And I think, and then I think the rest it can be education, Some people might not even have the benefit of knowing that a podcast like this is available. They might not know that, hey, I don't just have to give my money to a money manager. I can do some other things. I used to be somewhat against money managers. I'm a lot less now, because that's another bucket to have. That was a long non-answer. I sounded like a politician.